Yo, what's up?
Hello, girl. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm tired. I'm getting ready for bed.
Yeah, that's good.
But people watch soccer, so we must wait till they finish watching their games.
Yeah, let's get into it, bro.
Okay, cool. So,
Yeah.
what my question was: should a man be kept away, lack thereof a better word, from umntana wakhe because at this time and moment he's unable to support the child, or akasapoti to the likings of the mother? Or the demands of mama, because you find situations where maybe you've never even met your child. Like your child was born, you saw him or her once, then the mother moves to another province, abuyele kokwabo, and your family never gets to meet your child. But
Hmm.
umama umntana ufuna imali every other week. And when you bring it up that, but umntana makazona ukwaziwe ekhaya, dude, you become the bad person. you
Hmm.
know it's like,
Hmm.
what do we do with mothers who do that? Because there are men who want to be in their kids' lives, financially or not, but there are women who are saying, if you're not financially there, you have no right to even say hello to this child.
That's a good question. And it's weird that we even have to even get to questions like that. It's like at the end of the day, whose kid is it? It's not just one person's kid. It's not like
Exactly.
a loan where you get to keep it. We get to keep the lights on, for example, as long as you pay. It's not prepaid. And and I think, see, this is also the problem. This is like, I think also the fact that I think it goes back further, né? But
Mm.
when you before you have a child, do you not think of things like this?
Mm.
That's
Look,
the
I think
first, yeah,
I think a lot of people have found, let's not say, there are more unplanned pregnancies than there are planned pregnancies, right? If we're
yeah.
realistic.
So I
Now,
think, so I think,
uh-huh,
yeah. So I think
the
then the
person,
actual questions should be why that is, and then address that instead of trying to address the results of those. Because then it's almost like, okay, let's address the results of those, because then it's not really, you're not discouraging the first part or the first steps that happen from there. So just to say that, you know what, there's going to be kids unplanned, so yeah, let's plan for those kids. It's like, well, if you can plan for those kids unplanned, why don't you plan to not have them before you can plan to not, or to plan to
to plan to not plan them.
yeah,
Something like that.
yeah,
Look, I'm not saying, I think it's a beautiful thing where you and your partner, married or not married, come together and you say, listen, we're at a stage now where we can have a child, and I want to have a child with you, right? Of
yeah.
course, in a perfect world, it would be nice to have a child in a marriage, because in a sense, in a marriage, it's do or die. We have to make this work because we decided that we're going to be together, and being together and getting married and making it all legal and then having children. It's harder to walk away from something that's built in that sense. Whereas in a relationship that's boyfriend and girlfriend, it's quite easy to say, oh, listen, you're not the person I thought you were, and walk away. But the world that we live in, you have more of those situations where two people say, we've been together for 5 years, but I don't believe in marriage. Let's have a child. And then you have the child. And let's be honest, children change you,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
They change the way you think, the everything about you, and more especially, I'll say women, because now you've got this person who loves you unconditionally, and you've never experienced love like this, and maybe for the next 9 months you neglect the person you made a child with, and that's where the relationship starts to, it starts to break, because he'll say, I'm a man, I still need you to love me, I still need you to, I have needs. And I'm thinking, I have a child. So though some of those things are, you can't avoid it. It happens. You guys can fix the relationship, you can work on it. Other people choose to, go their separate ways. For me, it's that once you guys have decided to go your separate ways, you guys not wanting to be with each other should not affect the child. The child did not apply to come into the world. Probably if they had applied, they wouldn't have chosen you guys as parents. They would have chosen people who are in a stable relationship.
That's true. Yeah.
So now you're a father, and I'm saying to you, you're not allowed to see your child.
Yeah.
What rights do you have? Like, are there laws for dads? Are there laws that says, I'm a father, I want my child, she can't take care of the child, or she doesn't want me to see my child? What's in place for a father?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to find out. I don't think there's any laws for that. I mean, if I stand corrected, but I think for me, I think that there's laws in the sense that if you actually are obviously convicted of something, then or you are a danger to your child or to the mother, then that will be, I think that would make sense. But as in the sense of you don't pay child support, therefore you don't see your child, I don't think that's a law. They maybe you or anything like that for not paying, but they can't. The mother has no right to do that, and so the other way around. If you're driving and you're a harm to your child, for example, then there might be like, you know what, you probably end up in jail before anyway.
Yes.
So there might be, laws and that. Like I said, I stand corrected, but it doesn't make any sense. And again, going back to kind of like the original question, I think that the problem is we've been having this conversation at the end part. Because we find a lot of people, because it's weird when I'm a Namazana. Like women know that they bear too. So you as a woman, you're gonna bear the child. You have the child. It goes for 9 months, give or take, and then you with the child for longer than right? Much longer, as long as it lives, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for the father, it's like, well, we don't have to bear the kid, right? We don't have to bear the child. And then when it's alive and when it's there, we can love it and we can show it support and we can show it love and we can play our role, right?
Yes.
Which is just as important, if not more important than the female, which is, that's debatable. But then it's like, for women, it's like, okay, if you look at your life, you as a woman get born, you get to about the age of 18, right? And then 18 and like 30, you're trying to figure out your life, right? Or between 18 and 35, you're trying to figure out your life. And then by that time, you're then competing for jobs, you're competing in society, you're competing for all sorts of things, right? And then you're competing against genetics to have a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you find that when you have a child, things kind of take a back step, because then you can't be a super mom and then still be, like at a high-end job or leading in careers, right? So then that's when you kind of need to make a decision of, okay, you know what, between the ages of 18 and say 35, what do I want to do? A high-end lawyer, and it's not just to be that person. Do you want to then take over the world? Do you want to then change the world? And if so, it's like, then you might want to back off on having a child a bit, because that person that you're going to make is going to be the world as well, and you need to change them. You can't be fighting, wars with men and wars with life, and then you find that you want to then still fight your child's war. That doesn't happen that way. There's a few people that can do that, and it's very exhausting, and that's just one kid. Whereas for men, it's like, okay, well, I can have a child, right? A man can have a child, but we don't have to bear the kid. We don't have a biological clock, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that as well, we don't have any biological changes with us because we don't have the child. So that's why men kind of never change. You're all the same throughout, right? And then you find that then between the ages between 0 and 18, we're kind of similar, men and women. And then between 18 and like 30, 40, 50, we have nothing else to do but to work. Nothing else to
Yeah.
do but to be part of a child's life. Nothing else to do but to compete. So then we compete for high-end careers. We compete for jobs. We compete for a lot of things in society to just kind of make money and be the provider. So now as a woman, if you have a child in between there, it's like you made a difficult life of yours already even more difficult, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then you find that then you get to about 30, 35, and you're like, you know what, actually family is much more important in life, right?
Mm.
Now let's say you have a child before that, right? Now that child is now growing and now you need to support it in life and you need to now provide for it, like good schools and things like that, right? How are you going to do that if you're not earning as much? And because you're not earning as much, because you can't, you're not at the job long enough or as long as men to make the money that you need to make to take care of the child a lot. Oh, take care of a child as much as you want to, right? So therefore, that's why you find that then women need men that are in high-end careers when they have jobs to kind of then support that family structure. Because again, we have nothing more to do. You know, we don't have any kind of purpose besides the fact that you can just work, and then the more you work, the more you earn. That's just how it works, right? So now if you're gonna have a child, right, and then take that father figure away, then it's like, well, then who's gonna? It's not about you. And secondly, who's gonna take care of the child? And the problem has already been started in the end from the fact that in the beginning, from the fact that you didn't even make a decision about what you want in life.
Okay.
You see, so I think a lot of the issues come in from the beginning, but no, let's have a child. It's a beautiful thing, and it's like, okay, cool, it is a beautiful thing. But now, how much is that gonna affect you? So what am I have kids at like 15, 14, 16. It's like, okay, you have a child, it's beautiful. Then you have a second child. Then it's like, okay, do you understand that this child, you're already a child, but do you understand that these two kids, right, are going to be your life? And you can't just go around and compete every single time in jobs with men that have nothing to do, because you have kids that you need to take care of. So it's either you're going to be a terrible mom or a bad mom or a great mom, and then just kind of work a part-time job to be at home.
Well, it does not necessarily have to be obviously a part-time job to be at home. I mean, that's where, for me, it's not even a thing of men have nothing else to do but to be the provider. Of course, in our normal life and whatever not, I want a man to provide for me and the family. But if we are partners, and from the get-go, before we even planned the child, or before we had the conversation of let's have a beautiful thing, you knew what I wanted for my life, right? You knew that I wanted a child, I wanted a career, I wanted all these things, right? And maybe in terms of studies, I'm a bit far ahead than you are, right?
Okay.
Why does the sacrifice have to then come from me once the child is there? If you are a dad, let's say if you're a teacher and I'm a corporate mother, then allow me to flourish in corporate without making me feel like a horrible mother. Because remember, if you're a dad and you're in corporate, when you come home to a happy family that's sitting at the dinner table waiting for you to tell you all about their day. No one is like, oh, you're never here.
True. That's true. So that does happen. That does happen where you have guys that kind of, play the maternal role, and then the moms go out and kind of, put in more of the outside work. But again, it's like, that's rare as well. It doesn't happen often. And also with the way society is, it's like, it's just difficult for women to play that role because just innately they want to be maternal and take care of the child, and also the fact that you have things such as that women tend to just marry men that are either in their level, financially or status-wise or higher, instead of marrying someone less. And then a guy does the opposite. So a guy that wants to then have someone that's going to be either at their level or slightly below instead of higher. So then that's where the imbalances come from as well. It's just the general preferences always kind of lean more towards men. Men being uh, the head of the house, not head, but they become the father figures in the household. They go out, kind of traditional stuff, and then the woman kind of take the backseat and kind of take care of the kids and then do work. It just so happens that way. So, or mostly. So there are obviously instances what you're talking about now about men that kind of just take the back seat. But I think Abanabaninzi, they just have those, they have those, especially with cultures. Our cultures kind of, they're not too kind to women.
Nope.
Exactly. So before we even blame men for even trying to suppress women, it's like, well, the cultures that we built are made by both of us. So then, like,
Yes. No, that's true. Like I tend to feel that women oppress women more than men do.
see,
Right? Now it also goes back to um, how we raise our sons, right?
yeah, yeah,
Remember, even back then, dad would leave, the Eastern Cape and come work in Johannesburg, and
yeah,
you as a mother are left raising the son. And you forget that the boy that you're raising is one day going to be a man. And he's
yeah,
going to have a family, or he's going to have to interact with the woman. And we are then shocked when, obviously, we are then shocked when an older you is an abuser, right? Like you say, it then goes back to culture as to, but where did he learn that?
yeah,
And who was he left with in the home?
yeah,
Dad wasn't there.
yeah. And you
So,
find, yeah, and you find that again. It's like this question that we have now. It starts very. What were those beginning choices? Okay, Bufuno meter when una 14, una 15. Okay, cool. It's a business mind. All right. Do you understand now? Even with this, it's difficult, but you understand that it's first of all, it's not impossible, right? It's not impossible to be a supermom, so you can be. But chances are, especially if you're in a toxic type of relationship or situations around you, your community, you got ikasi, or even in suburbs, it just depends on the people that you surround yourself. If they're just negative and they have kids, then you kind of then support each other on things that you don't really understand. And then you have another kid, and then you have another kid, and you're like, okay, you have three kids, and then you're like, okay, cool, I want to go out to work. It's like, bro, having one kid is enough. Like having one kid is hard enough, right? So now those decisions that you make, then you find out that the men that you want to kind of be around don't want to be around you, or at least don't want to be around your kids. They're not ready for that. We have our own issues in the sense that we're not raised to see how culturally wise as well to understand the importance of being there for your kid and understanding the importance of supporting a family and not just being there for the wife. And it's not about you as well. That's why you find that a lot of women then actually their first child is the boyfriend, and then when they have a second child or when they give birth to one, that's the second child, because we just never come out of it. We don't have role models, and then neither do the women. They don't really have proper role models. Now, what are the chances that that child is going to have a proper role model? Then it becomes a spiral, and it becomes a spiral, and it becomes a
yeah.
spiral. So these questions, they start from the beginning with now it's like, okay, you doesn't do any, I'm tough, I raised a single child. Okay, cool. You are tough to do that, perfect. But how much in you now is left? How much anger is left in you? How much resentment is left in you? How much guile is left inside you? Then you find mana, and then says to you, okay, right? Now you have to fund their studies. It's like, well, as a single mother, that's difficult. And also, you want to find a mate for yourself, right? And then you're
Mm.
trying to find a mate for yourself, and you find that most guys are like, hey, I don't want to be with a woman that already has a child. I don't want to do this because I don't want, all these things, because, again, it's something that we're kind of, as men, taught culturally, but why have a responsibility, or why take on a responsibility when you don't need to?
That's not yours. Yes.
So then you're just like, well, you know what? Let me just not be there for the child, or just be there for the mother. Which again is like, it depends people to people, right? And then you find Nana goes out and says, Mama, if you and then I want to be this. Okay, then I'm a fine. They go to varsity and then they go and then they study architecture, right? Then you find that then as soon as they graduate, everyone's there, the whole family's there, then it's time for them to go and work, right? Then what happens? Then the mom's like, oh, this is the child that I wanted to kind of grow up, right? And then all those thoughts come from like, hey, now as a mother, then as a child, you feel that guilt of, hey, God, my mom did so much, let me give back to them.
Yes.
As a mother, you find that then you don't actually say to your child, no, go, like, don't just go and live life. You then say,
You want to live through your child.
yes, and then you have all of those things. So you're like, he hasn't done it. Kodwa zange ndithi, zange ndikwazi ukuthi, hey, kodwa asendlini, this mortgage would be would be better if it was one man paid for it, and if this and if that and if this and this that. And then you find that even in combined homes, it happens that way because culturally, it's nalanba, give back all the time, give back,
Black
and it's like, yeah, well, it's called that, yeah. You know, give back, and that all again, when you look at it, it all stems from the fact that you did not go and do what you needed to do, and then you chose to have a child, right? Because it is a choice at the end of the day, right?
Yes, it
is. Depending obviously if it's forced, but it is a choice that you chose, and now because of Londo, and then you put your effort in there, now you want a pat on the back for raising the child. It's like, who was gonna do it?
Yes, it was your responsibility because you chose to take on that responsibility. Yes, it's an uncomfortable conversation to say that you have a choice because people obviously don't want to talk about terminations of pregnancies and whatever not because it's like taboo. But at the end of the day, when you find out you're pregnant, you have a choice. You sit down with your partner, you have that conversation. You're like, are we ready to have a child? And besides having the conversation with him, you also have a conversation with yourself. Am I ready? Am I ready to make those sacrifices? Am I ready to do A, B, C, and D? And if you're not, it's your life. You terminate the pregnancy. You've chosen to do that. But if you choose to have the child, and like you say, our parents, like I was raised by a single mom, right? So it's like, as much as she's given and given and given, I've asked her this before. Has she ever wondered if she ever transferred resentment into me, right? Knowingly or unknowingly so, right? And and she was shocked because she didn't realize there was resentment there. Like I would say, I met my dad at very old, like I think I was 12. For the longest time, I didn't even know I had a dad. Like it was one of those, I was oblivious to anything father because I had my grandfather around, right? And even though she never said anything about my dad and I have a relationship, and I like the fact that it's on a clean slate, but there are a lot of things I would project onto boyfriends because there's something missing, right? I may not know what it is, but there's something my mom unknowingly transferred into me when it comes to men, right? And then when I date, her first thing will be, don't date a guy like your dad. So unknowingly, she's already planting that seed of resentment. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens to a lot of single parents. Moms especially, they go through the turmoil that they go through with their baby daddies, and then by all means to not badmouth. Some don't try, some will forever badmouth. But those who try, there's a it's unspoken, but as a son, either as a son you're raised by a single mom, you either turn out to be a womanizer or this guy who's always just got that one girlfriend and he's so sweet and he's taken for a fool because he doesn't want to hurt women. Or as a girl, you either never date or you become very promiscuous, So that thing of not having the other parent is whether they're in the home, whether they're not in the home. For me, it's not a thing of having your parents could live in the same house and they're still not there for you.
You see, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that goes back to what you just said now about when you're raised by a single mother or a single father, or generally a single mother, you can either be say a womanizer, or you can either be like a very, very soft person, right? Which is the same as if you're raised by two parents, but then two parents doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a single parent, because they just, like, you can have a dad just there. You can have a mom just there, right? So you find that actually in this household, this one just pays the bills, and then this one actually grows me.
Does the
Yeah.
taking care of.
Yeah, exactly. So that's true. And then you find that even the person that then doesn't take care of you, chances are they weren't taken care of. And then that becomes the spiral. And that's the fight that I think. And then you come back to stuff like that. But don't date someone like your dad. And it's like, okay, do you really think that the dad was the problem in any case? Maybe you were the problem. Maybe you the one that was just so difficult, and then that made him just not resentful. I'm not saying that it is the case, but do you ever have introspection? Do you ever actually look at yourself and you say, you know what, actually, if not, I sorted out my things, or I didn't like to or I didn't complain much, or I knew where my goal was, maybe I wouldn't have made decisions like this. And again, it's like it comes back to, like, it's so vital to just set aims for yourself, because as soon as you do that, then you're just less likely to fall into nonsense. You're less likely to fall into ruts because you have a direction. You find that abantwana bakhule bangananto yokwenza, they go bahlala esitratweni.
Yes.
And then what comes with that? You either become a gangster, or you become a robber, or you become you then go around with girls, and then you impregnate them, and then you make them resentful
And you
of
leave.
men. Yeah, and then you just become the negative stuff. Or because Aunando Yogwenza, what is your purpose? And again, for men, we have to create purpose. We have to create a purpose and try to live with it. Whereas for women, it's like, okay, having a child, or knowingly that you're going to have a child at some point in life, is a purpose within its own. So therefore, when Ufumba Indoni in between that and after that, then it's like, okay, I really need to study for these 4 years, so that then when I get into this company, I can then be whatever I want to be in that company. And then just one up, by the time I have a child, then they're right. Whereas for men, it's like, man, I can chill up at Konin until I'm 30. And then I'm in Chainzango, and then, do drugs, rock and teeny. And then I'll just change when I'm 40. And then you find at 40, it's like, hey, yeah, maybe it's too late for me to go to school. Yeah, you know what, I can. And it just keeps spiraling because you're afraid to take on responsibility. But maybe when we're 20 or when we're 18 and we are our own role models, and we say, Tambonus Banman does this, but Funali. Now nobody told me they like doing this, which is fine, but I want to try out being this, a policeman, this, that, and an army vet. But have a direction, so that uzoyaz bana of footballer, a cricket player, a lawyer, uzoyaz ba yaz noni lendo ndiyenzayo ngapha with my friends izanenzela ntoni to what I want to do. And then when there's no link, then it's like, well, then depending on what you value more, you will then lead on to that. And then you find that the friends and the negative stuff that come along with it, they sort themselves out, because you're more focused on what your goal is. Then your friends even kind of disappear. The ones that are negative disappear. Then you find that you're more inclined to people that are going to be more positive. But if you have no goal in life, then you just attract everything, whether it's negative, whether it's positive. And then obviously people that are more negative are just more, they're more inclined to be attractive.
No, but remember that also is it will always, I think all the issues that we have will always go back to how we're raised culturally as well. As a boy, you don't get as many, as a boy, now this is before you become a man, and as a girl, I get more responsibilities. I'm held to a certain level than you are in the household. Now, for example, we could be given chores, right? You stupid chore. You do the garden, I wash the dishes, right? Yeah. You don't touch the garden, right?
Yeah.
I probably wash the dishes, but I don't wipe them. Remember, the house is clean. It's just the dishes are not wiped yet. I am going to get reprimanded harshly far more than you will be. as a guy. You will be told, listen, I told you you must do the garden. You go, moms, I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, cool, boy, no problem. Mom walks into the house. Wami ezitya? No, mama zihlanjiwe. I'm about to, uyaphendula nophendula. And so, as girls, we grow up knowing that I have responsibilities. I have responsibilities. I have responsibilities. And as a boy, you're not really taught that. And that's why it becomes very hard for you to then say, when you're sitting on the, on the corner with these boys and you're like, goals, goals, goals. You were never taught goals as a boy.
No. And then you find that mom are there to raise us to become the fathers that they don't want to be with.
Exactly.
And then it's like, like you want Lumnana to grow up to be someone that you wouldn't date, and then you expect them to go and date someone else, so that person then.
I come from a blended family, so I have my mom, and my mom has. So it's my parents had my brother and I, and then they separated, and then my mom had 2 daughters and my dad had 2 sons, right? And so my dad married my stepmom, right? And my middle brother is 20. He just moved out of the house, right? And he can't cook to save his life. He's moved out. He's on his own. He can't cook. He can't clean. And my stepmom has to go to his place every other Sunday to see if there's food in the fridge, to see if the apartment is clean. And this is the conversation I have with her. I'm like, there's one thing you always say you admire about my dad. My dad was raised by his grandmother, and he's like very straightforward. My dad does laundry. My dad cooks when he feels like it. So that's the man my dad is. And I would say you admire that, and yet you're not raising that. You both aren't raising that. You understand what is expected of a man, but the both of you are letting these boys lay around and do nothing. And then they go out into the world, and because they had a sister who was reprimanded in front of them to wash their dishes, to clean up after them, they go out into the world expecting to marry someone or to get a girlfriend who has to clean up after them, who they don't understand if she doesn't clean up after them. And then I ask myself, is this the man you want me to date? Because as a parent, I want my daughter to have a boyfriend who's strong, who knows how to do things for himself. And I'm like, but if you're raising this, what is stopping another mother from raising exactly the same thing that you're doing, And it just keeps going back. And then I ask myself, what do we do? So we see, our parents, we can't blame them. They're in their 50s, 60s, so they've done. There's nothing they can change. We see it. In 2-3 years' time, in a year's time, you're going to have a child, and you're going to have a boy, and then you're going to have a girl. You're just going to have girls, or you're just going to have boys. What are you doing differently? How are you not creating an abuser, a murderer, or a victim, or all these things? What are you doing as a parent, or what are you planning on doing as a future parent to not create the monsters that we live with?
I think also it's a very good point. I think also it's like two questions where it's like how will you rate, people are quick to just have a victim mentality. No, the problems there, they're there, papa. Look at that child, oh my god, and and then it's like and you find that it works with everything, this whole victim mentality, but there's no only men are trash. It's like, okay, your father? Oh, no, that's my father that can't.
Your brother?
Your brother? Your uncle? Really? Are they that? It's like, oh, men really trash? Then it's like, oh, no, not the ones that I live with. It's like, oh, to who? Not the ones that you live with.
And why I always say men aren't trash, human beings are trash.
But then you see how this then raises a lot more questions, because you can take this conversation into a black and non-black conversation, where it's like, okay, we know black people don't like white people. It's like, Jonathan depend on I like John. So
But
why is it?
remember, no, but remember when a black, if this is what I always find funny. When a black person is accused of not liking a white person, we are quickly to jump, but I have white friends. But when a white person does that, you're like, but that still makes you racist, even if you have black. The mere fact that you highlight that you have black friends makes you a tad bit racist. So remember, we're very two-faced, if I can put it like that.
Yep, exactly. And it depends on what role we want to play on that day. So you find, for instance, again, but okay, as Noni, black women will say, as Noni, black men are trash. Sabatkapkela amatota. You are see samatota. You are sabatkapkela. It's like, okay, cool. That's today, right? And then tomorrow you find that then a white policeman goes and murders a black guy. Oh my God, let's come together, black men. And so on. We hate white men. It's like, yeah, were we fighting with you guys is all or no? What's going on? Oh, no, not all of you. And it's like, hey, so this narrative always changes depending on how it makes you feel. If you're the victim, you're perfect. When you're the victim, you're perfect. You know, when you're the victim, then all men rape, right? And you're like, oh, okay, all men rape. Wow, okay, that's pretty intense. Okay, so if all men rape, then your dad, your grandpa, no, they sweethearts, they fine. Oh, okay. And then you find that if you look at all these, I know we're going off topic a bit, but if you look at all these movements and all these factions, you know, it's like grouped people that are so different and have different things, and you find that we take one group and then we jump into it. And then when we jump into it, we march until we get called up for another team meeting. And then it's like, students. Okay, cool. Now we can chill with white people because we're all students. And boom, we're students. And it's like, yeah, wasn't I fighting him the other day? Okay, it's fine. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, what next? Xenophobia. Ooh, okay, which ones here are not foreign? Okay, and then we fraction again. It's like, that's it, I know enough. It's just a whole bunch of people looking for groups and looking to be victims. Yeah, well, it's like, listen, bro, like, if you have a problem, sort it out yourself. If you have a problem with someone else, sort it out with them. It's very easy to just be like, oh, you know what, I hate people that body shame. It's like, have you never body shamed before? Yes. So then, if you body shame once, are you not a body shamer? Or is it different to you? The rules apply differently to you. You have to then you have to body shame 10 times maybe. You know, it's like, oh no, I don't, because you also find that people do have prejudices. The fact that you can choose someone over something else, you're choosing it because you don't like that thing, right? It doesn't mean that it's a negative thing. It's just choices sometimes. So you find that then if someone says to me, yes, Nuni, I don't want to date you because you're not my type, then does that mean I can be like, oh my gosh, you are so whatever, you're so typist or whatever the hell it is, you know? It's like, it's like people are allowed to have that, but to what extent? You know what I mean? So if someone says, you know what, I'm not going to date you, I don't like black girls, oh my God, you're racist. Like, but it's a preference.
Yes.
Just because it had to
do. Your preference shouldn't, it becomes a problem when it oppresses onto someone else.
But that's the thing, though, is that if you find that everything that you choose will ultimately oppress someone somewhere. You cannot have a choice.
You see, it goes back to that victim mentality because not everything can oppress you. I'm a thick girl, for example, and if you don't date thick girls, that shouldn't oppress me. There is someone who dates thick girls, but just because you made it clear, like, look, I don't date thick girls. Oh, okay, cool. That shouldn't be something that I feel like, oh, you're discriminating. I don't date short guys, so am I discriminating against short guys?
Exactly.
Girls who say, I don't date broke guys.
But then you'll find that then you'll find that then there will be a short guy that's going to be offended by that. And then now to what point does his offense have anything to do with you?
It shouldn't have anything to do with me.
So now those are the...
why I say A friend of mine was saying the other day, you don't what was the word she used? But she basically you don't you aren't given offense, you take offense.
Yeah.
No one, not obviously there are people who will go out of their way to offend you, but it only becomes a problem when you acknowledge it and you decide that it's it's something that, like you're saying, we're going off topic, but let me give you an example. I used to say for the longest time, my dad is very clear, he's racist. He'll say this. He'll say, I'm racist. I don't like white people. That's my father, right? And we had this conversation once in the house, and he's like, every black person has had a racist encounter. Okay? And I said, I don't think I've ever had a racist encounter.
Mm.
And like the house was they were shocked, like, you're black, you've worked with white people, you've had white friends, and I'm like, I've never had a racist encounter, because when I deal with someone's attitude, I don't deal with the race, I deal nomntu ondiqhela kakubi.
Yeah.
It's never that you're black, it's never that you're white, it's the fact that you were disrespectful as a human being to me. So I'm gonna deal with you the same way I would have dealt with a yellow, purple, colored person, black, white, So this is why it goes, really, offense is not, we take offense and then we put it in you have your diagrams. This is racist. This is you're a feminist. This is body shaming. And then you take it and then you try and find where you're going to fit it in.
Yeah.
And you'll always be a victim in that sense. And this is where it just goes back to, when do we fix it?
Yeah.
And how are we fixing it? Are you, for example, with the rape, let me give you rape, for example. Everything that is ever spoken when it comes to rape is, as a girl, you must be loud with your no. You must this, you must this, you must this. No one ever sits a boy down and says, this is what, no is no. Just because she's wearing a short skirt. Like, teachings are one-sided in our society.
True.
No one teaches black people how to accept Jono, who has a farm, but he was born into the farm. He didn't steal it. Like, his family, he's your age. He's a 92 baby. So when could he have stolen the farm from your grandfather? Really? No one teaches that to black people, but we expect for white people to be taught that black people were oppressed during the apartheid, so you need to be kind, you need to be this, you need to be that. No one teaches black people that he's your age. You guys were in the same class in primary school. He doesn't know what you're talking about. As well as a boy. I've heard guys go, no, she'll say no, but it's like that lazy no. So I can work towards that no, right? So no one teaches boys that, dude, lazy or not, no is no. If you go home with a girl, just because you picked her up in the club doesn't mean she needs to sleep with you. No is no. It's always one-sided teachings, and that's the problem. It's a cultural problem, it's society, it's school, it's just those teachings are one-sided all the time.
And where does this start from? It starts from you making the correct decision about when to have a child.
But then again, remember, what is the correct decision? Sometimes that's also an issue. Because there are girls, for example, I'm 27 now, and time is ticking.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that clock, like, where are the kids, right?
Set yourself goals. When you set yourself goals.
You see, I have goals, right? In terms of finances, school, all those things. I have those goals, right? And you think to yourself, like, okay, so I, for example, had to leave after high school. I matriculated and I started working, right? So I'm going back to school now, like, as an adult. So my goals were pushed back a bit.
Okay.
And now I had goals as a teenager. My teenage goals were, I'm going to study for 4 years, I'm going to graduate, then I'm going to start working, I'm going to meet the perfect guy, we're going to get married, we're going to have kids, and at 27, I'll be done having kids. I'm 27, I'm not married, not engaged, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm working on...
Yeah.
working on those goals. But the clock term in terms of having kids is ticking because you see your gynae and your gynae says, you do know that once you hit 32, it's going to become very difficult to have kids. And then you're like, ish, okay. Then you're not planning to have a child, and then at 20, you fall pregnant. This is where now you're like, last week I saw my gynae and they were telling me about fertility. And yes, I'm closer to my goals, but I'm not where I wanted to be. Do I now say, let me not have this child and see what happens? And then you resent yourself in the future for not keeping the child because you can't have kids anymore.
Okay,
So sometimes,
let me end this one and then I can save it and then I'll go back again and make another one.
Okay, cool.
All right.